One of the most important rules of cave diving is to make yourself aware of the present conditions of the cave diving site before embarking on your journey. Ignoring this could result in life-threatening situations, as we'll see in today's story. The incident in this story is one of the most disturbing cave stories we've covered. Manatee Springs history can be traced back 9,000 years. The original residents of Manatee Springs were the Timucuan Indians. The entire picnic area was once a Timucuan Indian village. The Timucuans chose this site because it was alongside the Suwannee River, providing them with a means of transportation and fresh water. The spring was named by William Bartram when he saw a manatee carcass on the shoreline of the spring. Manatees are large, wholly aquatic animals. They're marine mammals, mainly herbivores, and they're also called sea cows. There was an attack near Manatee Springs between 1835 and 1842 called the Seminole Wars, led by Major General Andrew Jackson. Many Seminole Indians were killed, while the rest were forced to leave Florida. The area then became settled by farmers who harvested timber from the spring and cultivated their crops there. After the incident at Manatee Springs, the spring was sold to the state, and in 1954, it became the first Florida state park. Manatee Springs is one of Florida's first magnitude springs and the longest spring run flowing directly into the Suwannee River. Manatee Springs State Park is located in Florida about 6 miles away from Chiefland on State Road 320 off US 19. Manatee Springs State Park is a great place to have fun and enjoy yourself. It has a variety of activities to enjoy, ranging from bicycling to boating, camping, fishing, hiking, scuba diving, and wildlife viewing. The West Indian manatee, after which the spring was named, finds the spring a good habitat because of the reduction of aquatic plants in the Suwannee River as a result of tannic acid, which darkens the river. Since manatees are herbivores, they move to Manatee Springs, where they can get food and rest after they've traveled 23 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. In addition to manatees, there are also large numbers of American black vultures who come to Manatee Springs during winter. These vultures are not aggressive, and they're not afraid of humans at the park. The cave system of Manatee Springs doesn't belong to the most popular cave diving sites in Florida because of strong currents. It can make diving difficult and reduce visibility. However, Manatee Springs has the best conditions when other cave diving sites are at their worst. For example, when flooding of the Suwannee River occurs, the visibility in the Manatee cave system actually improves. There are many sinkhole ponds in Manatee Springs. Unlike other cave systems, the main entrance of this cave system is not easily accessible because it's too restricted due to the high current. To enter this cave system, you need to go to the Catfish Hotel. This sinkhole provides a huge window into the side of the cave. From the Catfish Hotel, you need to turn right and follow the main guideline upstream. The deepest depths of this cave system are upstream of Catfish, which is around 90 feet. There are other openings along the way, Sue's Sink and the Freedman's Sink. Divers always traverse between caves. That is, they enter one cave and come out through another cave. Years ago, cave divers usually made their way by following Catfish Hotel and passing out through Manatee Springs Fountain, main entrance, a daring traverse in the high flow. Recently, the tunnels near the main entrance started collapsing. This made the holes much smaller, and passing out through these holes became more dangerous. Diving experts warn divers not to go through such passages any longer. Also, in this particular incident, the heavy downpour in November 2019 made the running water much stronger than it used to be, and the traverse became more dangerous and unsafe to dive into. Therefore, nowadays, it's strongly recommended to not turn left from the Catfish Hotel because the very strong current makes it extremely difficult to get back. A blockage at the main entrance of the cave system makes it extremely dangerous to attempt reaching there. Certified cave divers have died while doing this. Zhou Min, a 28-year-old woman, went on a cave diving adventure at Manatee Springs. she was a Chinese native. Zhou, along with 3 others, left China for Florida on November 24, 2019, with the purpose of diving. The 4 cave divers grouped themselves into 2 teams. The first team was led by Wang Yuan, who was a cave diving instructor and had over 500 hours of cave diving experience. Alongside him on the first team was Chen Qian, who had about 100 hours of cave diving experience. Zhou and Fu Xiaoyu were in the second team, who were both newly certified as cave divers with about 11 hours of cave diving experience. The teams were led by Wang, the cave diving instructor, who was the most experienced diver of the group. He dove in Manatee Springs many years ago. He had traversed from the Catfish Hotel to the Manatee Springs exit 3 times. Since he hadn't visited the site recently, he wasn't pre-informed about the current situation of Manatee Springs and other water bodies around it. Things had changed from what they used to be. The cave had become extremely dangerous, more so than it was in those years of his past visits. But unfortunately, they didn't make any inquiries about the present situation there. They went with the mindset of the past. You should always ask questions about the present situation of things in any cave you have not visited for a long time. Conditions may not be the same as what they used to be, so for your safety, make inquiries before embarking on your journey, or at least when you get to the cave site. The 2 teams' dive plan was to exit the cave system downstream into Manatee Springs. The first team, Wang and Chen, entered the Catfish Hotel using their rebreathers and dive propulsion vehicles, or scooters. They connected the main rope and pushed against the water current upstream beyond Friedman's Sink, where they would turn around to join the second team. The purpose of this dive was to check the conditions of the route ropes and the Friedman exit. They stated that the visibility was not good. It was maintained in a range of 9 to 15 feet. However, they concluded that there was no risk of exceeding their capabilities and decided to push forward. They finished at about 1,600 feet, and the push took 35 minutes. Then, after ensuring the Friedman exit's safety and the surrounding area's circumstances, they advanced to 1,700 feet before setting down the first EAN-32 stage. EAN-32 stands for Enriched Air Nitrox. It's used to reduce the chance of decompression symptoms. The second team, Zhou and Fu, entered the cave system through the Catfish Hotel after 1 hour using LP95 back-mounted double cylinders. They dove for a short time on their own and met up with the first team about 500 feet from the exit. The 2 teams would then proceed by following the Manatee Springs exit downstream from their meeting point. Team 1 planned to dive for 140 minutes and maintain an oxygen partial pressure of 1.2. Team 2 planned to dive for 80 minutes and maintained a no decompressions diving range. When both teams met each other, they checked their air volume and decided to proceed with both teams according to the plan. After 5 minutes, they arrived at the end of the knot. Wang reported that he had been there 3 times, and each time the light and shadow of the exit can be seen at this point. However, due to poor visibility, the exit was entirely black. Since they weren't able to see the exit, they used a jump reel to connect to the main line. At that moment, the depth was about 50 feet. As they went up the slope for about 6 feet, the current increased significantly. Wang was pushed against a wall, and the current at the top was too strong for them to handle. He held onto a stone to maintain his position, but failed. The strong current tore through his mask and rebreather. After 10 seconds, he started to choke and wasn't able to locate his teammates. He looked up and saw some light shining from outside the cave and started to move along the rock wall in that direction. The powerful current of the water washed him immediately out of the cave. As he saw that no one else came out, Wang tried getting back into the cave to rescue others from the strong current. Then he saw light signals from the second team, Zhou and Fu, to indicate that they were calling for help. However, at the same time, Chen, first team, was stuck in a bigger main hole. Wang tried to pull him up against the current, but failed, and as soon as he let Chen go, he was pushed to shallow water. Wang saw that Fu was also thrown out of the cave by the strong current. Fu was disoriented but conscious. As there were still 2 teammates trapped inside the cave, Wang didn't check Fu's condition, and he directly entered the cave. Wang saw that Chen had become unconscious and his body was drifting with the current, though his regulator was still in his mouth. He also saw that Zhou no longer had her regulator in her mouth. Chen's scooter and lighthead were firmly jammed in the rocks. According to Wang, he had to move Chen away first to be able to reach Zhou. Wang cut the scooter and lighthead so that he would be free, and he was immediately thrown out of the cave. By now, Wang hoped that someone would have helped his teammates Fu and Chen outside the cave, so he returned to help Zhou. Unfortunately, he was not able to reach her because of the strong current. Zhou's right hand and head were stuck in the gap of a small hole. Unfortunately, she couldn't pass through this small hole. Wang clutched her hand, and a tremendous torrent of water continued to come out. At this time, he realized that he lost Zhou and was also worried about Chen's condition, so he decided to return to the surface. They found Chen downstream, and he was very confused but was able to breathe again. However, they were worried that he may have developed water in his lungs from prolonged aspiration. They took him ashore and immediately called the authorities and notified rescue services. Wang again tried to bring Zhou back to the surface after Chen got ashore, but the force of the incoming water at the entrance of the cave prevented him from doing so for 10 minutes. At that time, he wasn't able to enter the cave due to his conditions. They could only wait for rescue personnel. In the meantime, Fu hurried to the park duty station to get help. About 20 minutes later, an ambulance arrived to transport Chen to the hospital for treatment. He recovered after medical treatment. The rescue workers showed up after an hour. The cave rescue crew made 3 efforts to retrieve equipment that evening, but abandoned it due to an excessive water flow. The rescue and salvage operations continued throughout the next day, from 7 in the morning until around 4 in the afternoon. They were unable to get her body out of the cave because it had been hooked by the rocks. Therefore, they forcefully had to drag it, and the rocks pulled apart. This became another opening within the cave. After authorization, Zhou's buoyancy bladder was punctured to reduce water from dragging the body. The body was taken to law enforcement on site after they brought it to the surface. After the incident, the main line was removed from the Manatee Springs to the Catfish Hotel. In addition, a warning sign was placed there so that divers would not be harmed. Entering through Catfish Hotel to exit Manatee Springs is discouraged. You are strongly advised to go through other routes. We'd like to thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed watching, take a dive on the like button. Consider subscribing to our channel and hit the bell icon so you'll get notified when we come back with another exciting cave diving story.